Creative Block. I'm your host, Gene.
And V. We interview people in the animation industry about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on Twitter if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
And today with us, we have Jhonen Vasquez.
Hey!
Woo!
Hey! Howdy.
Hi, Joan.
Howdy.
Wow, you're the shark from Toy Story.
Yeah,
we have the shark
I love
from
that
Toy
shark.
Story.
I'm Woody. Howdy.
I love that shark. For those who don't know, tell us who you are and what you do.
Tell them about me. I'm Jhonen, and are you bad at this too? Are you bad when people ask you what you do?
Yeah, because
Tell me about yourself.
Tell us about yourself. Well, let's see. I'll fill in the blanks so that you can then choose what you want to elaborate on. You did some comics, Johnny Homicidal Maniac.
I've done comics. So yeah, I did Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. I did Squee, and I Feel Sick, and I never include stuff like the Bad Art Collection or Filler Bunny because I feel like they're not the ones that people would even remember. But they were the best ones.
It's part, totally. That's part of your bibliography.
I love that word.
Yeah, it's a good word. And then you, of course, created Zim.
I did. I like to think of it as inventing it.
You birthed it.
I birthed it.
How do you feel about birthed it?
I violently birthed it. I swelled up. My belly became transparent, and you could see this little Zim forming in there. And then it just popped and just splashed across the planet.
That's cute. And and then you made a movie recently, a Zim movie, Into the Florpus. That was fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun until it wasn't fun, like most projects.
That's animation, I think.
It was fun until it wasn't fun.
I feel like it's every project, though, right? Like, it's always super exciting at the beginning, and then it's like, man, this is kind of going on for too long.
Yeah.
It definitely went on for way too long.
Yeah, but it came out great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about Babby Jhonen and kind of how you got your start.
I was a fat baby.
Okay, I'm gonna draw that.
I was a fat baby. I've seen pictures of me, and I was just real round.
Okay, plump.
I was basically. Oh no! I gotta commend you on finding a drawing program that's actually worse than whiteboard.
I know. We're doing.
This is horrendous.
We're doing our best.
I'm gonna die on this hill, but I love Google.
Yeah,
it's my favorite big tech.
Oh no! What happened there?
Just go with it. It doesn't matter.
What happened there? Why is there a circle on top of my circle?
I don't know, because it like lags and sometimes I don't know.
Yeah,
it's just bad.
It's just a fun little trick. It's just a spicing up the drawing experience.
Yeah,
nice.
It's kind of
is unpredictable.
Yeah. Exactly. But so you were a round baby.
You were a round baby. Tell us about that.
From what I've seen, my memories of being round. I only have pictures. I don't have memories. I just have memories of looking at pictures and going, "Man, was I round?"
Mm-hmm. Did you always like drawing, or like kind of what was your relationship to drawing?
I've always. I don't know. It's weird to think about because I just always imagined every kid likes drawing, and then I just never stopped. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
totally.
it's not something that I'm like hyper conscious of. It's just I kept going where everyone else just snapped their crayons and pencils in half and screamed, "I'm grown up now."
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that that doesn't get talked about enough, the idea that I think every kid is capable of being a successful artist. Like, there's no such thing as real artistic talent. I mean, maybe there's like a predisposition, but like anybody can become an artist if they worked at it. Most kids just don't bother. They get told not to or whatever.
I don't think they're gifts. I think there's just drive, and it just happens to like, wow, your drive ended up really firing up when you were drawing, and then that made you want to keep doing it. I get in that argument a lot with some people.
Mm-hmm. Some people, every day. But so you just kind of didn't stop.
Yeah, it's just a thing that didn't ever happen to me. I know, and I never thought of myself. Maybe in high school, maybe in high school I thought of myself as an artist, you know, but I don't really think of myself like that. It's a thing that I can do, and I can do to a certain, at a certain level, but it's just fun. It always was fun. And I think that's just, it stops being a thing that people do as like a means of just sort of channeling fun. I'm uncomfortable around people who are very serious about their art, even if what they do is considered more serious. I don't like when people act that way. I don't like. I'm uncomfortable around people who are just, I am an artist, and I respect that, but I don't want to be in the room with it.
No, I feel you. Is there something you do consider yourself to be, or do you just not like the labeling?
Yeah, the labeling just sounds pretentious. So I think I would just rather be called a
human,
a magician of the imagination,
a visual. Okay, right. Imagination wizard. Right.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. Dude, fuck it. Yeah, I'm gonna start calling myself that too. Let's start it.
Do you? I was gonna ask. In middle school or high school, did you do anything like art classes or were you just kind of like doodling in your notebooks, or kind of what was?
A little bit of both. I was always really bad at art classes. I was bad in them. I got yelled at a lot for just being distracted or it. And I regret that in a lot of ways. I did take art classes and I didn't pay enough attention, and I think it shows. But I think what the result is that I draw the way that I do, and I always say that my style, my distinct style, is the result of me just not paying attention to how you're supposed to draw.
Yeah,
and I would definitely love to absorb way more talented people's powers. If that was a thing that I could do, but I would never trade that, whatever it is that makes my stuff look clearly like my stuff, versus someone who has incredible skills but just doesn't. There's no personality comes out in it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
I was gonna ask that about your art, actually. Is that like reading, like the first introduction I've ever had to your art was through Jhonen the Homicidal Maniac. And I was like, wow, I've never seen anything that looks like remotely like this. Like not just the writing, but also the drawing, like, and like the panels, everything. Well, also I wasn't very familiar with a lot of like indie comics at the time. So, I mean, for me, it was just like, there's a lot of personality here. And I was going to ask you, like, there's like almost a sense of like, you don't really care about what people are going to think about what you do. You just do it. And is that true?
Yeah, I think it's a sort of, at this point, it's sort of like a very well guarded sort of a thing. I don't know. It's just because I've been doing it for so long. It's just something that I've always done. It's always been sort of like a thing that I've done in private. Like just drawing for me I didn't have like a big group of people that I shared ideas with. I loved sharing my stuff with anyone who would listen, but it wasn't a lot of people because no one wanted to, they're like, that's cool. But a lot of people didn't seem to care in the way that I cared. Yeah, I think it's important, especially these days. I think maybe I talk about this a lot, but I think about not giving a shit as a rule. And I want a lot of the people that do stuff that I like to not give a shit about what I want.
Right.
I want to be surprised by what comes out of this other person. They're not me, and therefore they're way more interesting in terms of work coming out of. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm going to do. There's no surprise.
Yeah.
And I don't want for even if they're doing something that I love. And I'm looking forward to, I hope they do this with this idea. Oh, how exciting would it be if they did this? I don't want for them to listen to me. I want to be surprised by being disappointed
Sure.
by the turn that it takes, or surprised, or just like, or perfectly pleased with, oh shit, there it is. They pulled it off. This is great.
That's awesome. I was gonna, yeah, like you kind of answered also like another follow-up question I was gonna ask, but like I was gonna ask kind of like when you make something, what's kind of like your primary audience? Is it more like yourself, or like do you have
It's
like
definitely myself, which isn't to say that it's not a complete I don't give a shit about an audience kind of a thing. I give a shit about people having a good time or being impressed or liking something or disliking something in some intelligent way where they can express why it didn't, do what they wanted it to do. But I don't do it to make people happy. I do it to make me happy and hope that enough people like what I like. And I've always done that. I get weirded out when I see and I know it's just a different attitude, but I'll see artists, pretty well known and established artists, doing stuff. I'll see like them on Twitter, and they're like, "Hey, guys, hey, strangers out there, tell me which direction I should go with this thing." And I'm just like, and that makes me so uncomfortable and angry and sickened.
Yeah, that's disgusted.
Maybe not as strong as that, but I do think
It's like, oh God.
On some level, I do think gross.
Yeah. Well, you're giving up a part of yourself to pander to an audience, and that's kind of missing the point of like
sure
of making things.
But I always have to stop myself because I don't know these artists. I do, but I don't know their minds. I don't know how serious they're taking it. How like it might just be fun, but for me, I'm just like, no, don't let them in. Don't let them in.
Yeah.
People are responsible for every terrible thing I know of. And when you're asking them, hey, get involved in this precious thing of mine, I don't know, leads to bad stuff.
Yeah. Historically, definitely, it kind of always happens that way. It's kind of, I think that it can be used as a weapon for good, because there's been stuff, I think, with
no doubt,
yeah, with the way that like new media, with the way that like the internet is kind of folded into everything. Like there's something cool. I imagine being a kid and a creator of something you like asks you for your input and you get to contribute. It's probably it is like the best shit ever. And I think of like something like Homestuck, where in the beginning it was so influenced by people because they were straight up voting on what was going to happen next. But then the fandom takes hold of it, and then it starts to become suffocating. And then even in Homestuck's case, Hussey had to like pull back and be like, no, I'm doing this story now. Like none of you are influencing this anymore.
But also, like, I feel like any fandom gets like this. Like Star Wars never had the input of the fans, and they took like.
I feel like the newest movies suffer because they started listening to the fans. It feels like they're trying. It's all fan service, and it like doesn't work.
Yeah, I think I can't even imagine anything that big though. Working on anything
it's
that
insane.
Big. You've got a whole, like we were talking about the Ninja Turtles people earlier before we started, and Ninja Turtles is super cool. But I'd been asked, would you ever work on Ninja Turtles?
Well, you did.
I did, but as a short, which is very attractive. That's way more attractive. It's like a few months, you're in, you're out, and it's done. And you got to work on some turtle stuff, and you're like, there you go, I did it. But the thought of like being like a showrunner on something like that, Andy Siriano at the time was
an Ant,
and Ord, great guys. But and they took on something just that I think I'd lose my mind.
Yeah,
taking on. It's just you're not just being creative. You're not just making a thing, which is just kind of like the primary part of just working on a show, but you have so many things to address that aren't just creative. You're dealing with a franchise. You're dealing with so many masters who need you to do, who need this thing to hit so many targets. It's like working on like a Marvel movie or something, or just something
definitely
gigantic that isn't just yours. It belongs to so many people.
It's terrifying.
Right.
Somebody we had a question actually. Somebody asked if there is any existing IP that you would want to kind of do your take on. Is there anything that you would do that for?
I used to want to do my own take on an alien movie, but
Oh.
man, oh man, did they cure me of that after
Oh, yeah.
after the billionth horrible just go at it. It's I don't think I'm even heartbroken about Alien anymore or Aliens. It's been so long.
Yeah.
I had a bit of a resurgence in hope around the time of Prometheus, and then that just plunged a freaking spear.
Yeah, that was
down
rough.
my throat, and it came out my butt.
That was rough. Let's take it back a little bit. So, what kind of got?
Oh, hold on though. War of the Worlds.
Oh, okay.
That's what. Yeah.
Wow,
War
holy
of the
shit! Yeah, that would be great. I can see that for sure. You kind of did that with Zim. I feel like there's a lot of War of the Worlds.
Worlds. No. Like War of the Worlds to me is. I would not make it a funny thing, obviously.
Oh, okay.
Like, it's just one of those things that I feel that it's never been made. It's never been made properly. They came close. There was a recent BBC version of it. Well, recent, last I don't know how many years, but it still wasn't quite right. They changed. They always feel that they have to change it to the point where it undoes a lot of what the book was about, and it always bugs me.
Yeah, I get you. So what got you into doing Johnny, and like, was that just something you started making and then it was published and then it kind of started to gain some traction?
I mean, I was doing Johnny in high school.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if you could imagine like doing a book about a serial killer in
I
high
can.
school now. It's just
Oh, no, not now.
Yeah, it's just not a
Wait.
thing.
Hold on. So, did you get a book deal, or were you just kind of like doodling it? Kind of like, was it like the development kind of phase of Johnny, or were you actually like getting published in high school?
No. I was getting published in the school paper.
Oh.
Woo!
Yeah, different times. It was different times. I could do a comic about murdering students and
Man, no kidding. What a different time.
and nobody went, we got to keep an eye on this kid.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's been fascinating and shitty to see just how awful things have gotten.
Yeah, I mean, you don't know what's a red flag and what is just somebody working through their normal teenage angst. Because, like, I definitely, I definitely, like, would make stuff that was, like, like, you see, there's a lot of stuff that now everyone has eyes on and they judge it so harshly. But I think when you're a teenager, you're just working through things. Like, you're just kind of stupid and you're just trying things and, like.
I'm not teenage me anymore,
Sure.
but I'm pretty sure I wasn't working through anything. I just thought it was funny.
Okay.
I really just thought it was funny.
Yeah.
You know, that's always been, especially with like with Johnny, to a lesser extent Zim, but still there's still shades of it. It really was stuff that was made. Again, it was made for me, and I always hoped that the people who liked it were like me enough to know that it's not cool. It's just funny. It's just stupid. There's a certain amount of style to it, especially when the comics came out. You know, I was definitely trying to impress me and my comics publisher. Like, oh yeah, you made a good decision picking me up. Yeah, check this out. I'm gonna make serious comics.
Yeah.
But it was always from a place of just thinking it was really stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like stupid in a good way. Stupid in like a haha, look at these awful people, this is funny.
Right.
But I was definitely fucking 19 years old when I was doing the comics anyhow, and trying to like show off, like look how, like, not only is this funny, but look how smart I am.
Yeah.
And I read that stuff, and it's just, I think it's part of the appeal. It's part of like someone, I don't know. I did an interview recently, and one of the questions was, why do you think that the comics still have, the comics and the animation, why do you think the comics have so much appeal to a young audience still? Yeah. Oh wait, no, I don't think that was an interview for me. I think I was watching, I think it was like a bunch of the Zim crew answering that question.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's because it was made by someone that was of that age, it's that like hilarious mix of arrogance and absurdity. And I think people pick up on that. You know, even if I'm not proud of some of that stuff, I think that it's funny that people connect to that, and hopefully, you know, then they grow up.
It is endured, yeah.
How do you like feel about that? Actually, that was kind of on my mind as well, because I remember like Johnny the Homicidal Maniac for me was like such a big thing when I was a teenager. I was just like, wow. And I haven't like, yeah, it was just like, I don't know, like I said earlier, like I had never seen anything like that, and it was just kind of different.
Sorry, not to interrupt. Is this green the only pukey pea green?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my
Sorry.
God!
Just roll with it.
Sorry, V. Go on. I didn't mean to
It's
interrupt you.
okay. No, I was just gonna say, and it's, I don't know, there's like something just like, I don't know, it like kind of hit a lot of the things that I was kind of feeling and thinking about as a teenager, I guess. So I think like, I don't know, there was like I had like a really strong connection with that work, because I think it was kind of like the zeitgeist, you know, like it was the right moment, the right time, the right content. And I was just, and how did you feel about your content being like, yeah, I guess like received really strongly for like a teenage audience?
That's one of those things that I still haven't come to any real satisfying conclusion to. It's weird thinking about. I talk about it more than I actually understand it. It's weird being part of someone's life.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
In that way, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
It's strange to me, and I part of me always wants to feel strange about it. You know, I've got some fear of becoming complacent and arrogant.
No, I totally get it.
Yeah.
I mean, not every, but I guess there's like a running theme in all of my characters, in that they're kind of pieces of shit. And so it makes me very sensitive. It makes me hypersensitive to what it is that makes a person a piece of shit, which isn't to say that I'm like a fucking angel or anything like that. But there are just certain qualities where you're like, okay, I don't think I'm this person yet. And that's good. I don't want to be this person.
You've made your own characters. You're a barometer for shittiness.
Yeah, it's like I make them. You have to be conscious of what makes a horrible person, and I don't necessarily think that being aware of it makes it obvious that it's because you're a horrible person. But I know what it's like. I know what why a person would think what they think. You know, to a certain extent, you have to kind of relate to how a person can be shitty. And it helps. It helps. I guess it'd be like an alcoholic that keeps like just a fully stocked bar.
Sure.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, do you feel like it kind of helps you like relate to them to some extent?
Yeah. Well, I don't even know if it's about it helps me relate to them. I think, you know, I fear that I am them, and so it's like I'm consciously trying not to be them. So, because, you know, I think awful people, I mean, who doesn't fucking love hideous characters who behave terribly? I mean, it's its own genre. Like, people are fascinated with villains, and I've always been fascinated with villains, and I'm always disappointed when a villain isn't given like enough attention.
Yeah, that's always a bummer.
You know, like every Marvel movie.
Yeah.
You know, like it's like come on, like give this guy a little bit more love.
I love a good villain.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just this running theme of characters who we were talking about like you know, kids or younger people liking Johnny.
Sure.
And it goes even that far back. Like when I was working on Johnny was very much just a villain to me, but there was definitely fun in presenting him as, you know, I'm still a 19-year-old writing a villain. I don't know shit about the world, you know, but I'm having fun. It was fun. It was just fun to have a character that I thought was cool, but also I didn't want to be him. There were things that I would like to have, qualities that I would have loved to have had that he possessed, like he doesn't have to sleep.
Interesting. Yeah.
But he's not the good guy, and I always knew that. So I guess if there was any discomfort, it was in it's mostly popped up, as I got older, thinking like, oh man, it's good that I did. Obviously, it worked out that I did it at the age that I did it, but I don't think that I had the skill to pull off what I would like to have pulled off, to have had like a cool character that was the villain, that was as likable as he was still obviously a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So what would you have rather? Yeah. What would you have rather? Like, what would you have wanted to do more with it?
There were, it was there. It was all there. I just didn't. It just maybe wasn't there in the right amounts. Because there was a bit that pops up towards the end where Johnny says you're always a slave to something. Sure. And he says that, it's from him, it's an arrogant statement. He is the arbiter of truth. He knows everything. He knows who should live, who should die. He's telling Squee, how to, truths about the world. But it's just coming from one guy. Johnny assumes that he is the end all be all and he's got all the answers. But he's just another piece of shit in the world, He's killing, like, he's not just killing bad people. He's just killing people.
I see. That's interesting. I see what you mean.
Well, one of the funniest things, or I don't know, it's a kind of funny, is I'll get fans who are not quite fans. They've gone dark.
Oh no.
there's like a breed of fan that maybe they were fans at some point and then something along the way turned them and then they suddenly hated me. And every time I would get emails or just now I get messages on Instagram, or I'll still get emails. They'll write to talk shit about me or do whatever. Sure. But they sound like it makes sense that these people were fans of Johnny, because when I look at Johnny's dialogue, I'm just like, he's just insufferable. He's he's like, oh, it's really it's almost kind of cute, because it's like,
yeah,
you aren't smart enough yet. You're not smart enough yet, but you're so in trying to sound sinister and evil and intellectual, it just kind of betrays their age, and it just sounds like not, you can tell that they're usually very bright sounding, but they just don't have the experience, and they just sound like children trying to sound like Hannibal Lecter.
I know, yeah, I get you. Do you feel like it's sort of kind of like when people start idolizing, like, Rick or Walter White, where they like miss the point that the creator was trying to make, that is like, this character should not be idolized, like this is like, this is like a villain, and we're just watching a villain that is like fun to watch, but they see it and they start empathizing too much. Do you think it's sort of similar to that?
I think it's similar to that, but I think a lot of that is my fault. Johnny, it does, to a certain kind of person, he's cool.
Yeah.
Like I wanted him to be, I wanted him to be back then, but I also, it's just like Zim, I think Zim is much more obvious. He is a villain, but he's a buffoon.
Right.
I have a fascination with arrogant villains. I have a fascination with arrogant heroes, people who, to hopefully the audience, are clearly, they need work. They're not done cooking yet, but they think they're above it all, and they see how things should be better and how things should be in general. And it's just fun to watch someone. We just love watching. I love just watching idiots who don't know that they're idiots, and as and part of that is just a fear that, oh my God, I think I'm an idiot. Oh God, I don't want to be an idiot.
Yeah, that's a very relatable feeling.
Definitely.
I feel like with Zim, it's like a lot more obvious because he's got like Gur and like the other characters around him that can like kind of point finger, and also obviously like the I'm so sorry, I'm a terrible fan. John, please don't be mad at me. But like the elders, like who sent him.
Oh yeah, the Almighty Tallest.
Yeah, like they obviously make fun of him, so that like as an audience, right off the bat, like okay, he's an idiot. Like with Johnny, I think it's a little bit more of a delicate balance because there's not really anyone that's like
no.
And I think also because he takes care of Squee, there's like that thing where you're like, he's a good
Right.
guy because he takes care of the
Interesting.
little guy. Yeah, that's
So
kind of. I remember as a teenager, I listen. You know what? I'll just say it. I looked up. I didn't like look up to Johnny, but I was like, he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's watching out for this little kid that he sees in a bad situation. You know, yeah. I think you can be a horrible nightmare of a being and still have good qualities. You know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I think that's why people like Johnny. I think it's because I also there was like a year where I definitely got very into Johnny, and I still have all those books, but like I think when you're that age, you're just looking for like escapism, and you're looking for somebody to look up to, and when you're
Oh, you guys are on a whole other page. Oh man.
yeah, we're on page 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's cooler.
Yeah, we're just drawing your character.
Holy shit. Oh, this is great.
Yeah, and so like yeah, and Johnny kind of represents that. I think it's like this cool, sort of edgelordy. It's because I was like goth adjacent in high school, and I really I wished I was goth, but I never quite got there. And so for me, Johnny was that. And I think I always understood that there was definitely a layer of humor and irony to it. Maybe not everyone would.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate, but even all the serious stuff and all the like the angsty stuff, like it's what I was thinking. A lot of it I was thinking, and I was processing through all those things. And so like I think whether or not you intended it for that, I think that's why it kind of still resonates today, is because teenagers go through the same shit year in, year out, the self-loathing and the like thinking you're better than everyone. And
Well, I feel like also when you're a teenager, you're at that moment of your life when you want independence, but you're not ready to be independent because of like the expectations of society. So like with like money and like paying rent and all that stuff. So like your brain is almost there, but your status is just like still you got a little way to go. So there's kind of this,
You have nothing but time to think about
right.
your version of the world.
oh god, yeah,
that's true. Mm-hmm.
I wanted
While someone's, if you're lucky, while someone's taking care of you,
Sure.
and worrying about all of the all the boring shit.
It's a lot of suburban kids that end up kind of being that way, because I think it is. It's like if you're lucky enough to not have to worry about your livelihood or anything, you're still going to go through those same feelings of, those growing pains, but they're just going to be channeled into weird things, because you're like, where else do I put all this energy into? And so that's where you get like the mall goths and all that.
Yeah, I never really got into all that stuff. I think I had like aged out by that point. Like the whole concept of like goth and stuff. I always associated goth with being more flowery and not. It wasn't my universe at all.
Interesting.
More like The Cure, kind of.
No, just pretentious, pretentious, and like I just always liked people that weren't taking things too seriously. Not that I don't have a flair for drama, but I just always connected goth with just try hard, and it just but that's just my when I hear the word, I just think of, oh my god, this fucking program is terrible.
Yeah, it blows.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
We're sorry.
It's like undoing my lines.
Yep, that'll happen.
They're all gonna pop up in 10 minutes.
Yeah, you're gonna see what drawing you did a minute ago. It sucks. We haven't figured out a better one. Anyway.
I was gonna go back to kind of like a little bit of a timeline. So you said you were taking a little bit of like art classes when you were like in high school, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Were those kind of extracurricular, or were those kind of art classes that you took in high school?
Yeah, around junior year, I spent like a summer course at a college while still in high school, and mostly sculpture actually at that point. I wasn't yeah, and that was great. I love that.
Would you want to do more?
Yeah, I'd love to do more 3-dimensional stuff. It just feels good, especially these days. Like it would just feel nice to feel connected with materials a little bit more. Everything is, I mean, this program is really making
the digital barrier. I gotta say, well, I got into model kits because I was staring at screens all day, and so I wanted something to do with my hands. Maybe you should get back into sculpting.
Yeah, I don't have like a good studio space like I used to. I need to. I'm looking to go somewhere else that has I need space. I'm just gonna move out in the middle of nowhere where I can just have like a giant fortress.
Go to the desert
for $10.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. That's the dream.
Or just live in the desert. The desert will be my studio.
Hey, a lot of people go to Arizona because of that, because it's just all desert and rent is cheap. Yeah, it's like you buy a house for like $10.
Yeah, like you were publishing Johnny in the high school newspaper. So first of all, kind of when did you decide to kind of take it to a publisher, or how did that happen? How did you make that jump from it being in a high school newspaper to it being published?
It was a few years after, I think, not too long after high school. Was it my friend? Was it Brad? Crab Scrambly, friend of mine. I think I met them through. I made some friends through a friend, and I think he might have been working or just associated with them. They were doing a magazine. They were doing a magazine at the time, like a spooky magazine. And they were good people. They were very friendly. And I don't know if I pitched it or if they brought it up, but I just ended up doing Johnny as a comic in their magazine. So it was like my first outside of high school publishing gig. And it was well received. It was it was just more Johnny stuff at the time, pretty typical of the Johnny format. Someone gets hurt and then you laugh.
Yes.
And then shortly after that, I took a bunch of comics over to my eventual publisher, Slave Labor Graphics, who they were doing stuff back in the day. And it just really wasn't much of a process. It was just very, very casual.
Yeah, because you already had the comics done, so you could just kind of like show it to them.
Yeah, okay. I didn't do anything original for that. That was, I was going to call it a pitch package, but it was literally just like a manila envelope full of just loose comics. And I was like, here you go.
That sounds great. Back in the day.
How big was
Slave Labor? They were very small. They had like maybe enjoyed some like indie fame for some stuff in the, I think, late 80s. I'm not really sure, but when I was there, when I first met them, they were operating out of a TV repair place.
Whoa.
Yeah,
that's great.
And then my comics did pretty all right for them, and they I got to see them move into nicer and nicer digs, and they're not really publishing so much anymore. I think they're still around in name, but they've converted their space to like a performance space for live, like a live venue.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. They did like some kind of horror compilation that I was in once. That's my only real connection to SLG. But what got the attention of Nickelodeon? Because I know they were just kind of sniffing around.
The comics.
Yeah, the comics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was the comics. I think it was kind of like the early days of I don't know if it was the early days, but for me it was when I first became aware of like studio execs trolling conventions and comic book stores for ideas. So Mary Harrington, who was the eventual executive producer on Zim, she saw Squee. So it must have been around. Oh wait, no. Did she see Squee? What year was this? Either way, she saw my comics and got a hold of me. She contacted Dan. She contacted Slave Labor. It's like, hey, we want to talk about we're going to talk to Jhonen about blah, blah, blah. And Dan put them in touch with me, and I met up with them, and we got Chinese food.
That sounds nice.
They just picked my brain, and I just thought, cool, I could maybe work on a cartoon. Before that, I had actually been approached by MTV.
Oh, yeah?
And I said, no, thanks. I'm working on my comic right now. I'm a little busy. And which is so funny. And then I think by the time I was working on Squee, I was like it was coming to an end, and so I took the Nickelodeon offer, more seriously. And then it just kind of like with pitching the comic, it just, the animated stuff just kind of happened. I don't know if that stuff happens anymore, but it was just so easy.
Yeah, that's not how it goes anymore.
Yeah.
Or,
yeah,
like-
it just went, and there was really not a whole lot of resistance.
How was the process like? Did you have to like do a pitch with like a Bible and all that stuff? Or
Yeah,
did you
yeah,
just
we did a
kinda-
Bible. We did a Bible.
Mhm. Did they help you with that, or did you kind
I just sort of hacked one out with some friends, and it was really basic. It was a very basic Bible. I look back, and it's like, oh my god, I can't believe this turned into a show. It was just just a bunch of artwork and some synopses and the general, your typical pitch sort of setup. But yeah, it was. I don't remember stressing out about anything.
That's wild. That's so not the current landscape of development.
No.
Well, that's something that I
No.
was going to ask about, because you know, like you're saying, like you just kind of were approached and you pitched, and it sounds like it all went really smoothly. But you've also done some development work recently, and like, what's your perspective on that? Like, do you feel like how much has it changed, and like, is it for the worse or for the better?
Oh, it's god awful.
Okay.
It's god awful now.
Yeah.
It's. I once had an idea for a story about a machine that was designed to extract ideas from creative people's brains to create a television show, and it was just to bypass the whole creative mentality, so that people who weren't creative could just harness. They needed to, someone to power the machine, so they would just hook up someone who had an imagination left, and they would just get ideas, and they could just program this person. They would just put thoughts into their head, and they would get cooler versions of it on the other side. And the machine was. It wasn't perfected, so there were ways to break it, and there was a small resistance force who would infiltrate, and they would get jobs as technicians, and they would break the machine, and every time the machine broke, the company would build it back a little bit better, knowing what the flaws are. And I always just imagined that the animation industry, or just the entertainment industry was like that machine. Every time someone got away with something, we were like, oh shit, look, the artist actually got out pretty decently.
Quick,
the industry would be like, we cannot let this happen again. I feel like Adventure Time really kind of screwed people over in a lot of ways because of that, because of how that happened, because of Nickelodeon losing Adventure Time and not really seeing what they had, making a decision that they regretted later on. There's no way to know if something's going to really do well.
Sure.
But they lost it, and then it went to Cartoon Network, and then it became like a big fucking deal, and nobody wanted to be Nickelodeon again. No one wanted to be in that situation. They're like, we cannot risk letting go of something. And that made the machine even more insidious, because it's so fucking hard to own anything. I mean, it was even before that. It just it made it so that the artist was gonna get even more screwed. These deals that are made, and the timelines on which they're made, and development timelines, and just like to a potential creator, it's your life.
Yep.
It's your life. You're working in development for almost, you're not making hardly any money.
Oh God, no.
You're not making the kind of money that is worth, spending years and years. And there's no real time limit on how long development is going to last. So what sounds like good money for like a year or two suddenly becomes, starvation wages. You're like, oh God, please, are you going to pick my show up or not? They're like, it's not ready yet. We need to change this and that. And you're like, dear God, I need to get a job so I can potentially get this job.
Juggle multiple things.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, by the way, like when you were working on comics, how was like, were you doing just that, or did you have to get like a job on the side?
I had a job on the side. I was working at a DVD place. I was working at a DVD place, which to me was like, oh, this is so fucking cool. Because I got to take movies home all the time, and it was cool. Although I hated it, but there were cool perks. I got to watch movies all the time. And but I quit very quickly. Like comics basically were paying me DVD money. Yeah, I was very happy with actually making money because the comics were doing all right for slave labor. They were selling. They were like their top sellers. The Johnny comics, they were paying for my, lavish DVD and video game lifestyle.
That's all you really need, just DVDs and video games. And then, do you are you okay with talking about Very Important House, or would you rather not?
I'm fine with talking about it.
Because I'd love to hear a little bit about that process, because that's more recent, obviously. That's what, like 6 years ago? And completely...
God, I don't even know. It feels like...
Yeah, decade.
A million years ago.
Completely different landscape as far as development. And yeah, just I would love to hear about sort of like what your process was with that.
That was a little different. That would never have happened if not for Jenny. J.R. Goldberg, who, I was in one of my dormant phases at that point. I had been doing, I had pitched here and there, but not sincerely. I would get, I had meetings with a couple of different studios. People would reach out every now and then, like Cartoon Network and whatnot, and they'd be like, hey, we'd like to meet up and talk ideas. And I would have meetings, and then I would have some idea that I thought was really cool, and then the meetings would go pretty well, and then they'd generally like set up. They'd be like, hey, we want to have a follow-up meeting. Let's keep talking. And I'd be like, cool, and then I'd leave and think, I'm never coming back. I'm not going to do this. I don't want to do this.
Okay, because you didn't want to. Like you were, like your heart wasn't in it.
Oh, no. My heart was in my idea.
Sure.
Like I would love my idea, and then I would just think, they're going to fuck it up.
Okay, yeah.
It's not going to, this isn't going to, don't do this. Don't do this. And I would just not go back, I always feel, I was thinking about this earlier because of, I think I saw a question from an interview from earlier, or maybe something that maybe they asked when you were asking people for questions. Yeah. And I think someone was asking like, what have I been up to?
Yeah. There was.
And I go into these just artistic hermit phases where, it's like a classic character in a movie, usually basically Rambo. He went to war. He served his country, and now he's living in the forest, or he's in the jungle and he's hiding out.
He's far away from people as possible.
He's living on the land, and every now and then, the colonel will show up and be like, Rambo, we need you for this thing. And I'll be like,
I'm never coming back.
I
don't want to do it. Yeah,
I did my part. Yeah, I did my part, and I'm never going
it's
back.
Not my war.
You can't. So around that time, I forget what year it was, but Jenny was working in animation. She was like maybe just like kind of new. I forget what she was working on, Secret Mountain Fort Awesome or some Cartoon Network stuff, and she was doing like the grunt work. She was on the ground floor. She was doing characters, and it was it was cool seeing her go like up and up and up. But she had been wanting to pitch ideas. She had been wanting to like pitch her own stuff, and she was nervous about coming up with her own ideas. She's more of a visual person. She wasn't feeling confident in like storytelling and coming up with premises and stuff like that. And so at the time we were hanging out a lot and eating lots of ramen. Ramen shops were popping up. It was that time of ramen shops popping up everywhere, and I'd just be like,
there was a moment.
Yeah, and I'd have to try all of them. I'd be like, oh my God, new ramen, let's go get ramen. And at the time she was coming up with ideas, she was also like constantly asking me to, help me come up with stuff, and I'm like, no, I don't want to. I'm not going back there. I'm not going back to kids television. I'm not going to do it. And but I would to help her, I would come up with a bunch of bullshit ideas. you know, but like, it like, so, and they all depended on where we were. So if we were like walking through like, I don't know, a garbage dump, say we're walking through a garbage dump, I'd be like, ooh, what about a character that lives in the garbage dump? And
Come on, this is gold.
yeah, oh my God, they live in a garbage dump and they're made of garbage and there's garbage everywhere. You know, and so we went to go to a place here, Daikokuya, a ramen place. Oh, it's so good.
Everyone loves
Little
Daikokuya.
Tokyo.
Yeah. We went to the one in Monterey Park because I didn't want to wait in line.
Yeah, that line is
The little
brutal.
Tokyo one. Fuck that. The drive to the Monterey Park one is shorter than the wait for the little Tokyo one, and it's great. You just walk in, you have ramen.
Totally.
And so we went there, and we're eating, and you know she was still doing the whole like, help me come up with ideas, and I would just try to be as annoying as possible in hopes that she would go, all right, you know what? I got to come up with my own idea.
I like that you took this really long detour. Like you don't want to wait in line for Daikokuya, but you are willing to throw a bunch of shitty ideas at her.
Yes.
Bully her.
Yes. Yeah, so we're sitting there, we're waiting for our ramen to show up, and I'm like, oh, what about it's a little girl, and she has to make like the ultimate bowl of ramen. Yeah, she has to make the ultimate bowl of ramen for aliens that are invading the planet, and if she doesn't make the ultimate bowl of ramen, you know, that's going to impress them so much that they'll think, hey, Earth is pretty cool because they make good ramen, that they'll destroy the Earth, and then immediately, I was like, wait a minute. And by the time we left that restaurant, Very Important House was pretty much fully formed.
That's nuts.
It was about a little girl that didn't have to, it wasn't just about a girl that had to make ramen for aliens. It was just like, that was just one story. It was about a little girl who had just all this responsibility doing stuff for not just, the people of her own planet, but, she lived in this house, and whoever lived in this house, basically, it was the most important house in all of existence, and it was where people came to have their problems solved. And didn't even matter what the problems were. And I just thought it was really funny if a little girl would be called upon to like end a war on an alien planet.
Yeah.
And she's like, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm what the hell? And it just turned into Very Important House.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of trapped. I was like, okay, now I love this. Now I think this is really funny, and I think it's cool, and it's
maybe this was Jenny's plan all along, was to get you to throw your back.
Yeah, she played me.
Yeah, she played you.
And the plan was always to, like, I was going to be, sort of the world builder, and Jenny, but with Jenny's like major input, like every idea I had was like, what could I put Jenny in? Like, the little character was so much of Jenny and things that Jenny liked, but with my, I was definitely a personality in that world. And then the character ended up taking on more and more of like our own, like my traits and Jenny's traits, and it was just fun. It was fun to go back and forth and come up with ideas until it just seemed like we knew pretty much from the time that we were driving away, we should pitch this. This is fun. And then it went to shit. The end. That's pretty much the story.
Yeah. Well, that's development.
Yeah. That took so fucking long. It was such a awful, just drawn out process. If it was like 1 or 2 years of our lives, it would have been like, well, that sucked. But it was, 1, 2, 3, 4 years of just. By the end, it was just like, just kill us.
Yeah.
Just let us go. This isn't. The unfortunate thing is, when they, instead of just saying no thanks, they bought it and then said no thanks. So they basically kept us from being able to do it anywhere else. It's part of that machine.
That's the shadiest shit.
It's perfected. It's the machine perfected.
Yeah.
It's like, we're not going to let you go off and potentially make something that maybe will become something we regret losing. So we're going to buy it, and you don't have any rights to develop it anymore anywhere
That's so
else.
like incredibly toxic.
But it's common. It's so common.
It's incredibly common.
Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing about that process that is friendly for an artist. The concern isn't like, hey, we don't think we are the right people to make this thing that maybe could be cool for the universe.
They don't care about that.
So go and good luck. No, it's all about, we don't want to risk regretting losing this thing.
Oh, man.
So it is now ours.
Yeah.
And that is ultimately heartbreaking, Like it doesn't have to be like that, but
yeah, it
just becomes about not losing potential dollars. It's money, and it's disgusting, and there's nothing creative and artistic about that side of, of ultimately what it is. It's just a business,
If at the very least they would like buy it out, because like scripts, like I know studios will do that with ideas where they like buy a screenplay and they'll give you a fat lump sum, and that kind of helps swallow. It's like, well, if it happens, it happens, but here I can live on this money for the next year because I wrote this one thing. But that doesn't happen in animation, at least from what I've seen. It's like
well, there are buybacks that you can buy stuff. Like we technically could buy back.
That's I see. Yeah, okay. But it's
most likely with Disney still tagged on as some kind of a partner,
a percentage or something.
Right. But our buyback price was like nothing I had ever heard from people in similar situations. It was outlandish and kind of impossible for us.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you a question, and it's okay if you're not comfortable answering. You can but like, do you guys have an agent or a lawyer?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and even with that protection, you still got like kind of tricked.
It's not even really a trick. We could have fought to not lose the rights, but that stuff it's just rare. It's an incredibly difficult thing to go into a situation now. Like no one will ever have the deal that George Lucas had with merchandising. Right. No one will ever have that again.
Oh yeah.
I think those things kind of still happen within like new mediums when it's people are caught off guard. I think that like that's why you get like early YouTubers got it good because they were all like at the outset of all this shit. But then like even that has been played, and so now everyone's aware of how much money you can make on YouTube, so no one's getting the kind of YouTube money that they could be making, so it's like it seems like those earlier concepts got lucky. They just straight up got lucky.
Oh hey, I'm late to the new pages. I love these Frolies.
Thank you. But so you went through that process, and is there anything you've been working on lately? Any like projects? I know you probably don't want to talk about specifics, but
with the start of the pandemic, with the start of all the lockdown days and stuff, I went into like a really weird version of my Rambo living in the forest kind of a thing. I tried to not think about needing to do anything. I live in a place where art and creativity are a business.
Sure.
And I feel like I've been here too long. I've been here way too long, and it feels gross. And I just thought I needed to, like, I'm aware that I haven't really been working on anything, and I want to feel fine with not working. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel it. I'm going through the same thing. Yeah.
When I was coming up with all of the stuff that I did initially, it wasn't because I was trying to make like a hit or do something that was going to take over the world. It was just because this shit just pops up in my head regardless. And it's fun to live in these places in my head. It's just, again, it's going back to like being a little kid and just doing it because it's fun, because you can't help it.
Yep.
I can't help it. I mean, every day I'm, flying around in my head, or I'm doing this or that. But to think of it in terms of work, it starts to get really unhealthy and stressful, and it's just gross. And I live in a place where so many of the conversations that I hear are about the business. And I've always, I don't know, that part of me that is still so much that little kid that just wants to talk about the cool ideas and like, oh, I made up this dude and you can do this thing, and oh shit, imagine this monster. If I love that. It's vital. And after the Zim movie, I was in a weird place, and then with this lockdown thing, I think I was still in that weird place, and I just sort of I wouldn't say I shut down. I just tried to not think that I had to do any of these things, and hopefully something would just pop up that felt like, okay, this feels like something I'm willing to lose my mind over. And jump back into a situation where I'm being told what to do by people that I hate, or hopefully people that I like.
No matter what, that's the outcome.
Well, I mean, it usually turns into that. Like, working on the Zen movie was one of the best experiences of my life. It started off so good, and then it turned bad. But because all those people that made it so good, they left. Right. They left and went off to other studios, and suddenly we were just kind of just left hanging with no real support, and it was rough. You want for your crew, you want for your show, you want for yourself to be in a good and healthy, nurturing environment, and we found ourselves just sort of this like hideous, attic baby that they just didn't want to deal with. We were just this thing they inherited that they didn't necessarily green light, but there were, it just, studios change, the ownership changes hands. So, I work on stuff, but I work on stuff when I feel like I can't help it.
That's
and
great.
If I don't feel like I have to, well, no, it's not great because I need to eat.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, I guess, yeah, I don't know what your situation is, but like if you were able to do that, that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm able to, but I don't think I can do this indefinitely. Sure. It is a luxury. It's a luxury to think maybe this is going to make me feel better, and to be able to try it. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
You can always go back to the DVD
yeah,
shelf.
You can
I guess those were gone.
Like there's moments where I think, oh, this is great. Like it'll be, like 5 a.m, I can't sleep, or 6 or 7 a.m, I can't sleep. I get up and I just start putting, I have a wall now that I'm like sticking ideas to, for fun, and. There's no structure. There's absolutely no structure in my life. So my hours are whatever the hell I want them to be. And if I don't have to sleep, I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I in bed miserable? Like I need to fucking get up and just do something until I pass out, and I'll just, I have ideas. I have plenty of ideas. It's kind of like when I was telling you about pitching ideas before. I have a bunch of ideas, because I'm me. I look at them and I'm like, these are the greatest ideas mankind has ever invented. Oh my God, look at all these amazing things. And I still am not at the point where I think I'm ready to take this out. I'm ready to take this out into the field and try it, and pitch this to someone. I don't know. I like to think that eventually I'll feel like forced to do it, because I'm like, my God, I don't have shoes anymore, and I'm eating
you
sawdust.
Got like a barrel of suspenders. That's your only clothing.
Yeah, and again, I feel like that's incredibly privileged to fetishize the creative impetus of poverty. It's like, oh, how cool will it be when I have no choice and have to pitch this stuff? So, I'm constantly working on stuff. It's just a matter of when am I going to feel like I have to do this. I have admiration for people who are just very lizardy, and they pitch stuff because they're like, oh, it's a business to them.
Yeah.
And they're like, I got so many ideas, and I'm going to pitch so many ideas, and and when I get a show greenlit, I'm going to move on to the next thing and pitch a bunch of ideas. I cannot, for me, it's incredibly daunting, because I know that when I have something to work on, that becomes my universe. Sure. I have to split the sort of adult brain of running a show with the part of my brain that still loves living and imagining these other worlds. Like I love it, but at the same time, I feel like it's incredibly harmful and unrealistic to to daydream as much as I do.
Yeah, I mean, I relate to that, and I think it's tough. There's definitely artists that I see on Twitter, like success. I mean, I'll just name drop, like Pedro Aboli, like blows my mind, because like he did like Cupcake and Dino, but like he's got like I think he's had
yeah.
3 different shows under his belt, and he just goes out there and pitches concepts, and then like if they land, they land. If not, he moves on. And like it's like I respect that. I cannot function that way either. It's like I can't just come up with a little concept and pitch it and move on. Like I'm working on a couple 2 pitch Bibles right now, through all my burnout, through all of this, shit. And it is fucking taxing, because I'm trying my best to like not have the network voice in my head to do what you describe, which is that like.
That's it though.
Yeah.
Like, it's good to not have the network voice in your head, and the network doesn't.
Oh, I still have it. I still have it in my head. I wish I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta
I
get
wish
rid
I
of
could.
it. Even the network doesn't want you that in your head.
No, they don't.
You know? They want to feel like they've found something new, even though they're terrified of ever doing anything new. It's a terrible place. It's a terrible place to be. Imagine being a network executive. Like, you have to have a certain amount of sympathy.
Yeah.
What a nightmare existence.
It's tough.
You're constantly terrified of making asserting any kind of identity in your decisions that then could be traced back to when mistakes are made. That's the person who has to get fired. And you're constantly split between this sort of double think of give us what we know works, but what we've never seen before at the same time.
Yeah, it's impossible to know. It's an impossible task.
That's crazy.
What a nightmare.
I have sympathy for I think that there's a lot of like exec bashing that I've definitely seen, and I've been lucky to have good execs, and I have friends that are executives at networks, and like they're all doing their goddamn best. Like, I know that they care. A lot of them care about animation. I can't speak for every one of the execs, but like, yeah, I know execs that do care. And it's like you said, it's like this impossible task that's put in front of them, and it sucks because it's like no one's allowed to take a risk. No, at the end of the day, none of them are allowed to take a risk, and those risks are always what pays off. Like, always, those are the shows that do well. The Adventure Times, the SpongeBob's, and like it's a gamble. They should be, their job should be protected no matter what. That's how I feel, because then they take more risks.
As far as executives go, I feel like there should be a certain amount of, kind of how there's like sensitivity training, or
interesting.
If I had, it sounds like, this sounds like such, fantasy kind of stuff, and probably very unrealistic, but that's my favorite stuff.
We're imagination wizards.
I feel like every executive should have creative experience.
Yeah, I think so.
Every single one of them. And there are a few, some of my favorite ones. Like, part of what made the Zim movie such a dream at the start was that our executive in charge, our like liaison between New York and the studio, was he came from a creative environment. He was a showrunner himself back in the day. He worked on a show called Pete and Pete for Nickelodeon.
Oh, Viscardi, yeah.
Yeah, and Chris Viscardi was like one of the best things about working with Nickelodeon awesome. At the time. When I was working on the movie, or when it was announced that I was working on the movie, I got so much of like, oh my God, Jonen's working with Nickelodeon again. What's wrong with him? Or blah. People think of networks as people, or as like these unchanging things, like they have a personality, when in reality they're just these like these like nightmare Voltron things that are constantly changing components, and that changes the personality of the thing. It changes what they're looking for. It changes how they react to stuff. It's just different. Like the Nickelodeon that I was developing, that I worked on the original Zim for, was very different from the one that I did the movie for. The one that I did the movie for, so many of those people, they were underlings back when I was working on the show, and they weren't calling the shots. But as time went on, they moved up, and they were fans of Zim. And also, it didn't hurt that Zim had kind of established itself as a thing that wouldn't die, So even as like from a lizard brain perspective, they're like, this has attention still, and this has value still. So Viscardi was part of that. He was so supportive. And, even dealing with him as our executive with notes and stuff, the notes were never like, this is ridiculous. They're just, they were just like, yeah, okay. Even if I didn't agree with the notes, it's like, I get where this is coming from.
Yes.
That's as good as
you can hope for. Yeah, I felt the same way going through my development process. Like, for the most part, all the notes I was getting were like, I understand where this is coming from. It's usually like, I know there's pressure from the other end, and they know what is gonna bump against the network, like Viacom or whatever. And so they're just trying to predict those things ahead of time, and I could always kind of feel it. And I was like, okay,
right,
I understand. It's like, yes, sure, we'll do this stupid thing. Yeah, Viscardi's great.
I forget what got us talking about this, but yeah, Viscardi is great. He's a
he was really supportive.
Good thing. Yeah, when we started, there were so many creative executives, and that's what we were talking about. I feel like it should be mandatory that everybody who's telling you what to do understand what it's like to have them tell you what to do.
Yeah. Did you ever meet Brandon? He was on the show at one point, and he was an exec at Nick, I think around that time. Brandon Hong?
I don't think so. No. For the Zim movie, my contacts were mainly Viscardi, like in the early days. Viscardi, Phil Rinda.
Okay, of course. Also.
Yeah. Yeah, another one who's just like, yeah, he gets it.
Yeah, I love that idea. We've talked about it on the show before, and I really hope that changes kind of going forward, is that we see more creatives getting into that side of things more, because boy, do we need it. Like, it really makes the whole process smoother. But anyway, enough about that shit. Enough about all that development garbo. Tell us a little bit about like your influences and what kind of stuff revs your creative engine. Let's start with this. What are your like top 3 things that you admire and kind of want to live up to, if that makes sense?
I mean, off the top of my head, just ever since I was a child, and most of my I get it from movies, books, and video games. Less so comics, like comics and animation are things that I started paying more attention to intellectually as I got older. But from childhood, just video games. Because it's all there, motion and sound and design and movies and just books. If you're asking about something specific,
if you have anything,
like a favorite game, favorite movie, favorite book.
Oh God, I don't have any favorite no, there's just too much. I refuse to try and lock down any of that stuff.
Some of the titles that might be popping in your head right now.
I mean, I already mentioned Aliens and War of the Worlds. Lots of science fiction, lots of horror. Like, I think I saw someone asking about Cronenberg. Just a lot of horror, like a lot of, I guess, less so than specific things, just like sources, like David Cronenberg.
Sure.
There's just something. I know his stuff isn't comedy, but it kind of is. It's absurd.
Yeah, well, it's surreal.
Any horror could just as well be comedy. And that's I did an interview recently where I kind of went way deep into that, and I maybe talk about that a lot, is just how much I love horror as a source of comedy, and how just I think specifically they were asking me about where my fascination with like body horror comes from. I think because it was a Zim interview, and they were asking about stuff like Rise of the Zit Boy or Dark Harvest, where there is a lot of body horror. And I just I ever since I was little, and it's never really gone away. Just being alive is one of the most horrible things I can think of. And they were asking like, why did I put that in a kids show? And I'm like, because kids are alive. Kids are meat. Kids are alive, and they're made of meat.
Gotta learn.
Yeah.
Kids are alive and they're made of meat. And there's a certain point, very early on, kind of freaked out about, oh my God, like I'm made of meat. And I don't control all of it. I'm trapped in this thing, and so much can go wrong. And when you start thinking about that, when you start obsessing over how easily your meat can break.
Yeah, dude, I try my best
Or-
not to think about
Oh my god, I feel like when I was a kid I was like so hyper aware of like how breakable bones were, and there was a point I was scared of like going downstairs because I was so worried of slipping a step and then I would just break everything in my body.
Yeah. And even better. I mean, and this is all stuff that just sort of informed storytelling, because I'm fascinated with the idea of what we think of as us, what we think of as like I look at my hands
Right.
and like those are my hands, but they can come right off. And then just the thought of being altered, the thought of like, and that's, it's so funny, but at the same time, it's funny because it's like a giddy kind of funny that it's like, it's funny, but it's horrifying at the same time. The idea of your body being altered and that stuff just, I think kids pick up on that, it's like funny to them, but at the same time, it's like they can't look away because there's some like really creepy fascination with being changed. Like Zim turning into baloney.
Yeah, God, that
is
episode.
funny as hell to me, but at the same time, think about you becoming baloney. You're not going to be
That
laughing.
episode just straight up ends on that shit, and it freaks me out every time. I'm like, oh God, we're just not gonna come back to that, huh?
So when you're talking about stuff that like really it inspired me when I was a kid and I watched David Cronenberg's The Fly. It was
Oh my god.
when you think about that on the surface, you go back to like the Vincent Price version, and it's it's cheesy, it's it's funny, but at the same time, even that's a nightmare presented in a kind of cheesy 50s manner, but it's a nightmare. And then David Cronenberg just like one-upped it by making it so human, and so it still sounds like a fucking joke. A guy turns into a fly, but when I saw that, the way that it was handled, it was just a very complex mix of emotions and reactions of like, okay, for one, the artistry. I understand this isn't real life. People made this. Artists made this. Writers wrote this. This is like a miracle of things coming together and working on, like, it's like, this is amazing. I want to do this. I want to be someone who contributes to something that works on this level and affects other people the way it affected me. It's like the artistry of like, holy shit, this is awesome. And then there's just that part of me that like, especially when you're a kid who understands that things are fake, but at the same time, they're still real. It's like, I can't wait until I see someone turn into a fly.
Man.
It's like, oh man, this is like, I can't, that's where like, I put all of that into Very Important House. It was this idea of, it's not a matter of how cool would it be. It's a matter of how cool will it be when all of these fantastic things happen to me, when I get to see all of these things that I dream of. And so when, I just have so many memories of watching movies and being in that kind of half here, half there of like, this is amazing work, but also this is fascinating and I want to see this in real life someday. And then I think that set me up for like serious disappointment because, so far I've seen no
Not
ghosts.
a single ghost.
No ghosts, no aliens, no monsters. And,
That you know of.
and so I'm jealous of people who had all their dreams sort of like stamped out of them early on because they're not as probably let down as I am.
Maybe it's like a Men in Black situation. You never know.
Yeah.
That weird guy that's in the convenience store. Maybe he's an alien. You never know.
I don't know. Maybe.
I like to be.
Yeah, maybe life is just too subtle.
Yeah,
for me.
I'm on the glass half full side of that.
It's just too subtle.
Have you watched that Unsolved Mystery episode on Netflix about all these people who got abducted by aliens in that
Yes.
area? Man, this is so like interesting. Thoughts really fast.
Those wackos. Anyway,
It's still the spookiest theme song in all of
very good.
television.
Yeah.
that and X-Files.
Yeah.
X-Files freaks me out, and I'm 31 years old. We got a lot of good questions from Twitter.
Yeah.
Some of them we actually kind of answered organically, but let's see. What was it like being in charge of a show without having any experience of the industry? Was there any guidance, or were you just suddenly given responsibility over all of the show right away? From Chaotic Cat.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of both. Like I said, at the time, I think that was the best thing about it. I think it helped me, as I didn't quite understand the situation I was in, and so I didn't worry about it. I was like, well, it's just another thing that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do it amazingly. And but yeah, Nickelodeon definitely, Nickelodeon was aware of the fact that I didn't have a whole lot of experience, so they put people in place whether I thought it was a good idea or not. Some were, some weren't. So they put, more seasoned professionals in place with me to help me get stuff done. But it was just, I don't know. It sounds weird. I felt like, well, this just makes sense. It's just, it's part of, I guess it's a little bit of, that Zim thing of like, of course I have my own show. I mean, like, of course this is what I do. And now I'm doing it.
That's awesome.
Well, I don't know if it's awesome. It sounds.
I just love that. I just love that you were able to be in that headspace at all. I think just imagining being in that headspace for me sounds just like a dream.
Yeah. Sounds great. From @Sean Acherson, how do you find the perfect balance between disturbing and funny?
That's stuff that I don't think about so much.
Kind of comes naturally.
It's I don't really think about how can I make something as fucked up as possible.
Yeah. Make it weird.
It's like I said, there's certain things that I'm attracted to, things that have always fascinated me. And so I do my own take, or just, things influence what I do. And I'm aware of the fact that I'm going for a certain thing, but I'm not as aware of a balance. I think maybe a better writer would have a formula for that sort of a thing. I just kind of do what feels. I think it's much more emotional for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There's just things that I have just a natural reaction to, and I think, ooh, I'm gonna do that. I fucking love parasites. I love parasitism, and it's nature, and the idea of something not giving a shit. You are vital. You're vital to its survival, but it doesn't think of it in those terms. It just thinks, well, this is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't even think of it doesn't have any concept of you other than that's the thing that I need to complete my life cycle. Mm-hmm. You're just home to something. You're just a thing to be used. And that's as upsetting and disturbing to that's the ultimate disturbance to a human being. We think of ourselves as these, holy individuals. We are just these, untouchable things. Yeah. I'm me. And then to everything else in the world, you're just more matter.
Yeah.
It's offensive to us. And it's incredibly fun to play with that. And that stuff pops up in so much of my work. But I don't know. It's a weird, I get the question, but it's not one of those things that I think
Sure,
about.
you can't articulate it, yeah.
I feel like there is definitely a thread in what you think is funny with for example, thinking all these characters who are arrogant and or stupid. It's kind of
a lot of arrogant and stupid.
And the way you describe a parasite kind of matches
yeah,
that to
definitely.
some extent.
I think about the scene. I think about the scene when Zim is on the bus a lot, because I relate to that so hard, especially when I go out into the world, and now even more so, where everyone is disgusting and lifting up their masks to cough, and I just think of him on the bus, and it's that squealing, that perfect sound design of the high pitched sound, and the baby, and I think you capture such a specific emotion that not everyone carries in them, but if you have it, that I don't know, I guess I don't want to call it sociopathy, misanthropy.
Yes.
Misanthropy.
That's a good one.
It's that. It's captured so well, because it's God, I hate being out in the world sometimes. Just seeing how gross people can get.
Yeah.
So funny.
let's see, from at Derek Malik Joe. I remember back you said the Turtles was your biggest influence and others, but what are recent series, TV shows, animations, games, etc. that has inspired you and influences you today? So like what's a recent thing that you have been really into?
I haven't really been keeping up with. I mean, I'll watch movies now and then, but series, I don't know that there's any one thing that is like the biggest thing in the world to me right now. There's stuff that I've liked. Like what's out there animation wise? The last cartoon that I watched that I was like super into was Gumball. And that was
that one was,
as far as like kid
great.
Stuff goes. I mean,
What about-
Gumball was crazy inspiring. I've been watching there's things that I'm watching and maybe they'll become something bigger to
Sure.
me, but as far as like animation goes, I've started watching a couple of episodes of that Invincible show.
Oh yeah, me too.
It's like that,
Oh, yeah?
that show on Amazon. It's pretty fun. You know, it's nice to see. It's still pretty sincere, sort of superhero stuff. And I'm not a big superhero person, but I like good storytelling. And
Yeah.
I like fun characters, and it's been entertaining. I've liked it.
So you know what? Like I started it too, and I've read through the whole comic. I don't really read superhero comics either, despite what people might think. I don't. I have a weird.
We sound like such
We're
assholes. We're like those
such-
people who
yeah.
are like, "Oh, I don't have a television."
Yeah, I don't have cable. I don't
Yeah.
have cable, but I don't really read superhero comics. Although I have a weird encyclopedic knowledge of it all. I don't know how that happened, but like the comic for Invincible, I think has a lighter tone than the show is so far from what I've seen.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that it way more tongue in cheek, way more like, yeah, like I started watching the pilot and I was like, oh, this is taking itself very seriously. And like not
Yeah, the
to
show is-
knock
yeah.
what they're doing, because I think they know the audience they're trying to hit, but the comic is, I would suggest reading the comic because it's way, it's a little sillier. Maybe not as much as you might want, but like I like how self-aware it is throughout the whole thing.
What about adult cartoons? Have you guys like watched BoJack or like
I watch BoJack.
Canberry?
Yeah, I really
That
like
show?
BoJack. I liked
Yeah,
BoJack. It was
is, yeah, it's one
it
of my
was
favorites.
one of those things that when it ended, I was just like, man, they made a good thing.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
like just genuinely impressed.
Mhm.
It was, I don't know if you feel like this falls into the realm of animation, even though it was definitely looks animated. What was that Amazon show?
Oh, I know what you
On
mean.
Amazon
Oh, Undone.
Undone. Rosa.
I-
I loved Undone.
Yeah, it's really good. I read like recently.
I absolutely loved Undone.
Bob Odenkirk, right?
Yeah.
Raphael was a part of like worked a little bit on Undone as well, or a lot. I have to double check, but he's he's BoJack and Undone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that show's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate I even dig Invincible. It does for adult animation. It's not like tits and cussing.
Yeah, it's not.
It's I mean, there's definitely violence and exploding heads and stuff, but it's better. It's an improvement on what I generally associate with adult animation. I love BoJack, but I don't necessarily think of it as inspiring for animation.
Yeah.
It's kind of more like it's more what I imagine when I think of adult animation. It's sort of like just celebrity voices with the focus isn't on the animation and the animators.
Not
Right,
at all.
I see.
Yeah.
Mhm,
It's the
mhm.
writing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's all the writing and then the voice cast and stuff. I mean, but there's shows that are, they fall into that category that I don't necessarily love that attitude, but I do like the shows, even if they're ugly as shit. Like what's the other Netflix one with all the penises and the
Which one? Big Mouth?
Paradise PD.
Big Mouth? No, Big
Penises.
Mouth.
I hear penises.
Big Mouth.
I think of Big Mouth.
Yeah, yeah, I like Big Mouth, but I really wish that there was more of a focus on making things look
Yeah.
good and taking pride in the animation. I feel like it's just that sort of stuff only makes it easier to point at and go, we don't need no
Yeah.
budget for animation. Look, that's a
Yeah.
hit. And you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
I can only think of Primal, and that's the only one that is
Ooh,
an
yeah.
adult animated thing, and it looks awesome. And that's just Gendy's pure star power, just like being able to.
Yeah, well, it's his star power and it's fucking Studio Lacachette
Yup.
doing way too much work for probably not enough money.
Probably not enough money. Yeah. Yeah. Well, they care. I think that's usually what it comes down to is they're just into it. They just like the work.
Yeah. I almost did something
really?
with them at the start of all this. Yeah. There was a Love, Death, and Robots thing that didn't happen, but and probably for the best. It was not an idea that I saw ways of making it make sense for me, but there's not a whole lot of playing with the idea when you do one of those. You just kind of are handed a thing and you kind of do it or you don't do it, but and hopefully whoever picked it up does something cool with it, because I always want to see more cool things. But
yeah, cool things are nice. That's the takeaway from this. Cool things are nice.
Cool things are nice.
Question from @StickyEye. Any desire to work on? Yeah, I know. Off to a bad start. Any desire to work on a set again after the "Shut Me Up" music video, or nah? After many hours and blasting at you in editing, has it been long enough you can listen to the song again? That's a funny.
Oh, one of the things that I've been working on. One of like the big takeaways. I'm actually happy that I'm not happy that all kinds of people died, but
yeah, that's
one of the good things. One of the good things about a plague taking over mankind and being locked in my home for like over a year now is one of the big ideas that I've been working on. Definitely came from all of this. And it's a live action thing. I would love to do something different. I would love to work in live action, and I love animation. But the thing that I came up with is definitely a live action idea. So
that's cool.
Yes, yeah, I would love to find myself on a set again someday.
Would you do another music video?
Yeah, that was really fun. That stuff is so attractive. The idea of going. Like I said, kind of like with the Turtle short, just something that's just short form, where you can just cram in as much visual, idea as you can, and just music videos are a great place to just experiment with stuff.
You did the video for White too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a fun one.
Yeah. That was so stupid. It was so dumb.
Silly. I like that video. I mean, it seems like you guys filmed it in a room, and that was it. That was the extent of it.
I think we filmed it like on a phone, or like it was just trying to make it as crappy as possible. But I would like to flex a bit more. I think it'd be fun to do something that was maybe a little bit more ambitious. Although that worked for that video, for the White video. It was kind of the point, but it's so goofy.
Well, yeah, you work within a budget. It's like the restraints sometimes.
Yeah, there's just no budget.
That was Left Rights, right? That wasn't MSI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, we can probably also ask about creative block. If that's, I guess maybe you kind of went over it with like your hermit phase.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as far as like having an actual creative block goes, I don't think I have like my own version of it. I never want for ideas, ever. It's one of like, it's just, it's a passive ability that I didn't put any skill points on. It just is a thing I love doing that. I love just coming up with ideas and then getting to that place where I think, oh yeah, no, that could totally be a thing. And then I just throw it in the pile, and then I walk away. It's more a matter of, and I don't think I'm alone. It's more a matter of doing it, and it doesn't feel like a block. Like I just can't. It's a matter of finding that place in my brain where I think I am now ready to become miserable over this.
It's like falling in love.
Yeah. It's commitment issues. It's definitely commitment issues.
Yeah. Do you feel like I sometimes think about this, that like creativity is kind of a muscle, and that like if you worked it out early enough in your life, like if you're the kind of kid who was doing a lot, that it just strengthens it for the rest of your life? Because I feel the same way. Like I've never really been creatively blocked. It's the work that gets harder for me, like actually finishing it. And
yes.
And I wonder if that's just something that, different people worked out different parts of their creative brains, or just their brains in general. And I wonder, because I don't think that it's like something we're like born with, I think it's It's a muscle.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Again, it's one of those things where, it's fun to sort of ponder, but I don't ever feel like, aha, I am satisfied with my conclusion, and now I know. Sure. It's just, I've always been this way. And I think, obviously you can always improve.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've focused on improving, like visually. I never think of myself as like the most talented artist in the room, and I've never really aspired to it. I always look at people like, I look at you guys and I think you guys are fucking amazing.
Aww.
I look at your work and I think, holy shit, I would love to steal their powers, even if it meant that they die in the process.
It's like Siler from Heroes. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my God. Holy shit. I was just yesterday. That's so crazy that you brought that up. Yesterday, for some reason, I was trying to, probably because I've been watching Invincible and he plays that robot man. I was trying to think of, for some reason, I was thinking of Zachary Quinto and thinking, is it Quinto or Quinto? Quinto, Zachary Quinto? I'm going to say Quinto. I was thinking about him and thinking about, when did he first enter my life?
It was Siler.
Not that it mattered, but I completely forgot that he was. I was like, was he in Heroes? And I couldn't remember a character that he played in Heroes. But you're right. Holy shit, that's crazy that you brought that up.
I never watched that show. I tried and I didn't like it, but for some reason that stuck with me. That he would rip people's brains open, and that's how he stole powers. Because I was like, that's sick. That's a good villain.
Yeah, I most of the people that I know, I think, are like Jenny. Jenny is one of the best artists that I know. She's incredible. But so many of these people that I know they have such like identity issues when they see other people's work. Like, I think you guys are fucking amazing, but I would never give up what I can do.
Sure. That's good. Yeah.
I know what you mean, though. I feel like it's definitely a process. I mean, because I feel like I relate to like the identity issue. Like, for a long part of my artistic career, I was like, I'm terrible. Like, I'm not going anywhere. Blah 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 blah. And like, I don't know. Recently, I just kind of, I guess, a couple of years back, I had a moment where I was just like, well, what if I just didn't give a shit? And then it's nice
to not give a shit. It's not and not like not giving a shit in the sense of being apathetic. It's just, it's like, I have a particular set of skills that make me the best at what I do. And at a certain point, you just kind of have to have a kind of like punk rock attitude and be like, and it sounds arrogant, but it's like, you do what you do, and if you don't think that you're the best at doing it, and I know that's such a weird thing to say because so many people have, there's not everyone out there has that kind of confidence, and I don't even know how deserved it is, but I'm fortunate enough to be so deluded that it doesn't hold me back. That's not what's holding me back. Like that's how horrible my problem is. Speaking of like a creative block, how fucking arrogant is it for me to think, I don't know if I'm ready to pitch this because then it's going to become a big deal and I'm going to have to put up with all the bullshit of, like that's not a bad problem to have, even though I don't think it's in the right proportions, because clearly it keeps me from actually going out there and doing stuff. I think it'd be cool to have more shows, just more notches. Every time I do a show, I carve a line in my arm with a fucking, a hunting knife. Yeah. And I've got one line in my arm, So, I don't think it's inspiring my problem of thinking that I'm not ready to put up with the bullshit for some idea that I think is amazing.
But I think it's always interesting for other people to hear that, though, like a different perspective on how to approach art and how to approach creativity, because it's true that sometimes there's a lot of artists who get bogged down, like myself even, just thinking well, all of my ideas are shit, so I might as well just give up, kind of thing. So hearing that there's that you don't think that way is inspiring,
No. No, well, no, but again, this is me talking about like trying to be aware of just being a piece of shit. Because my problem is, I'm like, look at that person who actually put the work in, put themselves out there and made that show, and that show's shit. And I'm like, I should be out there. My stuff should be out there. Meanwhile, I'm just fucking hiding in a cave. You know?
I see. Yeah.
The show always gets into some therapy as it goes on. Everyone just starts airing out all of their like frustrations.
I love it. That's my favorite. It's my favorite.
It's like
part.
weirdly, it makes me like hearing that stuff. I'm just thinking like, man, I'm going through the same stuff. I'm like, why is everyone going through the same things? Why are we all suffering?
Well, I mean, it's different talking to people like you versus just some interviewer who is just like asking me questions. Yeah.
What do you get? What kind of drugs were you on when you did Invader Zim?
Oh God.
Somebody told me that. Somebody I respect asked me that once, and I was really disappointed.
Wait, no, but like if someone asks that, like I will never think they ask it seriously. Like I cannot, like none of my being can fathom this.
No.
Question,
right? When I was asked that, I wasn't serious, but I was like, dude, come on. It's just like this.
Doing in-person interviews. Whenever time I would get that question, I would just roll my eyes and then hold my arm up so they can see all of my collapsed veins.
Your heroin.
I'm like, what do you think
it is?
Fuck.
Straight up heroin, bro.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or plug?
Nope.
Okay, good.
I got nothing to plug.
Well, you do streams. You do.
You do streams. Yeah, I've been doing that. You've been part of that.
I have. Yeah.
Those have been fun.
They are
those
fun.
Those have been a kind of therapy.
Sure.
In this hideous isolation, but
yeah.
Yeah, no, nothing in particular to plug. I'm just here for the pleasure of your company.
I'll plug stuff for you. How about that?
Oh my God.
You got so it's at Jhonen V on Twitch, right?
It's Jhonen V, JHNenVee.
Got it. And then you got Zogi Corp now.
Zogi Corp is so funny.
Which is
I can't believe like Andrew, who has been like managing Zogi Corp for us. Andrew, who is a wonderful artist in his own right. He's he'll give us updates like he's like, oh my God, guys, people are actually buying this stuff.
Oh yeah.
Which was like on some level we knew like, well, people, it's there so people can actually buy stuff. But the fact that they're buying enough of it. It is that we actually see some money from it is so funny. It's kind of the ultimate joke. Zogi Corp is a joke, but it's doing okay.
Well, they're funny. They're funny designs. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, Zogi Corp is like it's doodles from your streams that are
they would make absolutely no sense outside of the streams.
Yeah, deserving of their own shirts. I really like.
Yeah, and they pop up. They pop up during the streams too, most of the time, which is great. Like we'll be drawing something and we'll be laughing our ass off at how stupid it is, and then Andy will post a link to a shirt that suddenly exists.
Oh, that's
of
amazing!
This thing that we were just laughing at, and
I really like the.
It's magic.
Like the gummy bear that's give me money, and it just says "fake" pointed to its big ass.
Yeah, that's inspired by a true story. There's a guy that works at a hair salon near me, and he has the most gigantic fake butt I've ever seen in the world, and it is fake. It is a fake butt.
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah,
I'm scrolling through these now. There's so many. I'm happy that I was there for like a good chunk of these too.
You were there for the invention.
I was there
of
for
the concept of Zogi Corp.
Yeah, it was Gia writing. Was it 2060 or misreading 2061 as Zogi?
Right.
Good times, man. We have fun. Anyway,
yes.
Let's wrap it up.
Well, thank you guys.
Oh yeah,
thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah,
it's an honor. It's a privilege.
Yeah, that was like so fun. Thank you so much for coming on the show, dude.
Well, that's the end of this creative block. Thanks to Jhonen for being our guest and sharing his story.
And thanks to our listeners. Follow us on Twitter. That's at Creative Block, creative without the vowels, where we ask for drawing prompts and questions to ask our guests. Huge thanks to my sister Clemens for editing the podcast.
Please subscribe to the channel if you love our content. I've been your host, Gene.
And that was V. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.